how can we better help support teenagers manage their mood and better regulate their emotions?
Your parting shot.
No, that was so childish. Sorry.
Can you hear my music?
Yes.
Do you like it?
It's a good theme song. The 70s vibe.
Yeah. Ni za ndani Marekani nikikupasha yanayojiri yanavijiri yanapojiri leo. That means what's popping, how and where. And today, I'm joined by a very passionate developmental scientist dedicated to improving the lives of youth and families. Ladies and gentlemen, she is a PhD candidate at Penn State University. She specializes in adolescent well-being, parent-adolescent relationships, and family-centered interventions. They usually say when you make an introduction, you might say some things that people don't want to have said, or you might not say some things that they want to be said. But I'm going to say this. Her current research focuses on the daily well-being of Black African teens and parents. Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are across the world, please help me welcome Queen Kelly and let her introduce herself properly.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
You're welcome.
It's an honor to be here sitting with you. Looking forward to a great discussion together.
Absolutely, absolutely. What did I not say, or what should I have said in the introduction that people should hear?
So my name is Kelly Ngigi. I am a lover of life. I am a big believer in loving God, loving people, and being of service. I think I'm someone who considers to be someone who lives on purpose and in purpose. And so those are some things to know about me. I love to have fun. I love to spend time with people and just learn about the world. I think I'm someone who's just so curious, and I think that's part of my nature, but also part of my career. So I get to live in curiosity.
I got stuck at the in purpose and on purpose. She's going to tell us a little bit about that as we move on. But before we jump in, let me ask this because I want to get it out of my chest. Mm-hmm. I see science as a competing force against religion. Mm-hmm. Well, people do not know that you're a pastor's kid, but I know.
Yes.
And you're in science. I perceive science as a study that seeks to put logic or explain what the miracle of God's creation is. Mm-hmm. Am I in a good place with that?
Yeah. I mean, I think when it comes to science, it is part of our human nature to be curious and question and ask why and seek understanding. And I think the thing that separates science from religion is that religion leaves a lot of room for unanswered questions. And that's where it taps into the more spiritual being that we are as humans, where we don't know everything and we don't have all the answers. I think science allows us to be curious and to seek answers, and we do find possibilities and we do find evidence for questions that we ask. But science, one of the things that I think people assume about science is that it's an absolute. And science is not an absolute. It's really just an attempt to accumulate evidence to support a belief, to support, a question that you may have, an idea, a theory. And if you ask a lot of, people who practice religion or are very spiritual, for them, they are also accumulating evidence in their life that agrees with the beliefs that they have. And they also have, for some people who don't believe and are not believers, they also are accumulating. So I think it's a bit of a perspective. But I definitely think science actually really goes well in hand with spirituality and religion because it allows there to be some form of balance.
Right.
Yeah.
It kind of sounds quite scientific to me, if you ask me.
Yes.
But all in well, let's jump into it. What is the most interesting thing that you've learned in the process of your study, in terms of the struggles against of the Blacks and African teens and their parents?
Yeah, so I think one of the more surprising things that I've learned is that parents and teens oftentimes have similar perspectives on their life experiences and the things that they're struggling with on day to day. But because of the structure of our families or our communication patterns, there's not a lot of room for parents to have honest, open conversations with their kids. And I think that's an adaptive practice of keeping your kids safe, keeping their innocence. But because I work with teenagers, one thing that I know is that they know a lot and they're very observant. And I have seen that so many of our youth are very much aware of the things that their parents may be experiencing and are quite attuned to, whether it's their emotionality or the stressors that they have. And what is most surprising for me is when parents hear just how much their kids actually know when I'm able to facilitate a conversation between the two of them.
Right. That is interesting. Are some of the struggles that you're talking about or referring to things that you've experienced yourself? And is there a relationship that you can talk about, from your own experiences?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely was a teenager myself. I enjoyed being a teenager. I had ups and downs in my everyday and my emotions. I argued and bickered with my parents just like any other kid. I think what I experienced as a teenager, especially in an African immigrant household, I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama.
All right.
And so I was born in Kenya, grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. If you know anything about the South, it is a very racialized context. And so I would be leaving the home in my, day-to-day at school and stuff like that. And I'm American. I'm just Black.
Yes.
Versus being in the house and I'm Kenyan and I'm, struggling between those two worlds.
How old were you when you came to the U.S.?
I was about 3 going on 4.
So you really don't have any experience in Kenya?
Yes and no. I think I have had the privilege of living in an ethnic enclave of other Kenyans in Alabama. And so I would say that I'm very enriched in my culture.
Right.
And my parents did a really good job making sure that we both were able to keep our Kenyan culture, but also assimilate it into American culture.
Right.
And, a lot of people don't know this, but my sister and I used to be fully fluent in Kikuyu and Swahili. I can still completely understand Kikuyu. Some things, the pronunciations are not there, but I can hear still.
Well, I don't speak Kikuyu, so I was just trying a little one. But let me ask you, I have this parent who's got Kenyan-born kids, but they moved here when they were pretty young, just about the same age as yourself.
Yeah.
And he says, once you walk in through that door, you're in Kenya. Once you step out, you can be American as you want. Yeah. Was that your life?
No. And I think because my parents were very intentional, especially my dad. My dad is a big believer in, I want my kids to be book smart and street smart. And he was like, I have to prepare you to navigate the world that you're in. I think if it was up to my mom, it would have just been a strictly African household.
Okay.
But having the balance of the two in their perspective, there were certain things, of course, that I had to, do as a African kid in my household. Discipline was still very much African. Communication. Oh, absolutely. Oh, that sweet
that
Reverend Ruth that you know.
I didn't think pastors, discipline their kids like that.
I have an African mother, okay? And she's an African mother first.
Yes. Before she's a pastor.
Absolutely.
Okay. And a dad too much.
My dad, he was much more gentle, much more patient. I think moms have the day-to-day.
I think maybe because this is my assumption. It's their business to ensure that kids grow in the right discipline. The man is just there to ensure that, that is delivered.
For sure. He was very much an enforcer, but I have had the privilege of, my parents are quite young. I know they don't tell people this often. So I often say, like, we grew up together. They came to the U.S. when they were very young and had young kids. And us navigating a lot of our life was growing up just as they were growing up. And that's something that, like, parents don't always think about with their kids, is just as much as they're, like learning how to be in this life, learning how to be in this country, how to function and navigate in the world and at work and with their peers. Kids are also doing the same thing. And so there's a growing process that the entire family is actually sharing that is not always acknowledged. But I will say having my mom is, definitely very strict, and my dad a little bit softer, but they definitely made sure that we had our African values and principles. And yeah, I mean, sometimes in the house it was like, this is an African household, and then on some other days it was like, okay, we can assimilate to the way things are done here in America because of the challenges, and I'm grateful.
It is where you are, really. Yeah. So cool. I've met your mom, and when she first said she's got I wanted to say your age, but I really doubted it because she looks pretty young.
Yeah.
More like would pass for your sister.
Definitely.
And now when I meet you, you don't even look like you would be doing all these things. PhD candidate.
Yes.
How did you get there?
Yeah. So. Where do I start? I think I've always loved school. It's something I love to learn. I love to read. I really did not want to go to college in the sense that I wanted to go to culinary school. I've always loved cooking. I had a passion for cooking.
Really?
Yes. And you talk about an African household. My African parents were like, no, you are not going to culinary school and we're not paying for it.
Oh, okay.
So I had to choose a different route. And thankfully, actually, I started college when I was here in the state of Washington, and I did community college at Highline College, and that's when I really started to get exposed, and that's when I actually met some of my first Black PhDs in my life.
Oh, cool.
And so that kind of opened my world up to kind of figuring out, like, okay, where can I take this curiosity? And then I fell in love with psychology, and that's where I got my journey started. And I've just seen it through, because the one thing that I learned was that a bachelor's in psychology was not going to be enough.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to do more, I needed to get that advanced degree. And particularly because getting an advanced degree not only opens a lot of doors for you, first of all, no one can take it away from you. And then there's a certain command that you have when you're an expert in your field. Yes.
Absolutely. What's the ultimate quest in your research?
So my ultimate thing that I would like to learn with my research is, what are youth and parents experiencing on a day-to-day basis? And what about those daily experiences are things that we can target? So I'm a mood researcher. I study mood. I study daily emotions.
I'm getting very cautious right now.
Yeah.
When you say that, I get nervous.
Don't be. There's no psychoanalysis going on right now. Okay. Don't worry. Feel comfortable.
Thank you.
Yeah, ultimately, I really just want to know what about day-to-day life is happening, but also what can we help families do? Because oftentimes people think long-term outcomes, long-term health outcomes. And I'm a big believer in it's the everyday that accumulates. And so if there's a way that I can help a parent be a better communicator or be more aware of their child's experiences, or if I can help a teenager better regulate their daily emotions with the world that they're living in, then I'm doing the job that I need to.
Right. What is the difference? And I'm just curious to ask, why Black African teenagers or adolescents and not generally all?
For sure. I think there is a major gap when it comes to studying Black youth and Black families. in terms of research. The research world has been here for decades, right? But there has not always been a focus, let alone funding that has supported this type of work. And so I think as someone who is in my community and has experience and knows what this experience is like, who better to not only study this, but work with the people and hopefully communicate the things that I find. And I think that we have a unique experience here as Black people in the U.S., let alone if you're coming from an immigrant background.
Right.
And so I believe that we need more people to speak to what it is to be from the diaspora across the world here in the U.S. And there's not enough conversation around that on a larger scale, on a larger platform. And when I think about the work that I do from psychology, it's very, very limited. Like it's really within the last maybe 10 years that we began to start specifying, differences within the umbrella of what it means to be Black. And a lot of that started with focusing on not just African Americans, but Caribbeans. And then now we're starting to see more specificity when it comes to Afro-Latinas, or if we're talking about people from the continent where, on the East Coast, now we're having researchers who are studying Nigerian Americans, Haitian Americans. And so we're having this more specificity. And so for me, I find my gap in those of us who are here as Kenyan Americans.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great. Are there specific aspects of daily well-being that you're exploring?
Yes, mood. I'm a big believer in day-to-day changes.
Okay.
Because I don't believe that this is a unique experience, but I know some days I'm at 100% and other days I'm at 65 and other days I'm at 47. And I just think we need to acknowledge that humanity of ourselves. And when we think about daily emotions, it's about how today's mood or this morning's mood is even setting the pace for the rest of the day. Oftentimes we think about general, like, oh, am I happy? Am I content? Am I feeling okay? But really what we need to be asking is, how am I feeling right now? Okay. Where my feet are, what experience am I having? And just being more present. And how do those accumulated emotions lead to long term? And when we think about that from kids and teenagers who are hormonal and they're having different experiences every day with their friends, with their teachers, with their family, a lot is happening. And it is a challenge to capture all of those differences. But I think it's important as we try to better understand what those emotions are, how to create emotionally healthy children, because the world needs emotionally healthy adults.
That's a very strong statement. And, in previous conversations I've had with some people, and someone said, like, the current teenager or youth is very relational. Almost everything depends on how do I feel about whatever is happening.
Yeah.
Are there, how does this research fit into daily well-being of an adolescent in terms of the outcomes that you are going to get out?
I'm hoping that what we uncover through this daily research and the daily findings is, how can we better help support teenagers manage their mood and better regulate their emotions? Because that's a very important skill, even as an adult. And the added challenge for Black youth is that the world deals with them much differently than other youth from other races. And so how we instruct our kids to validate their emotions, but then also regulate and control, to know in what room, in what environment can I express myself? Do I have the safety to express myself? How can parents better validate the experiences that their kids are having? But then also the key here is teaching youth that just because you are having these day-to-days doesn't mean you're without consequences. You have to still manage those emotions because it's an internal process. And if you allow those changes to shift you and change your behavior, you're in danger. And that's not a healthy sign. That's not a healthy practice to have. And so teaching healthy practices, and ultimately, if we can do that with our youth, the next generation of adults are going to be so much better. And will only get better with time.
The last 2 years or so, there have been a lot of losses of young Kenyan youth, part of which is attributed to what you're basically talking about.
Yeah.
Because I mean, when people can't control their emotions, then they run the risk of either getting into drugs, and the resultant is some of those actions that they take. Some people get into drinking, heavy drinking, they end up in accidents and passing on. And it's been a concern that has been raised by a lot of parents out here. Have you had an opportunity to probably speak to some of those parents who've lost their kids, or are those kind of parents that you would want to speak to? And do you think that is related to what you're studying?
Absolutely. It's absolutely related to what I'm studying. One of the things that really convinced me to go to grad school was what you're speaking of, and having so many losses, not even here in the state of Washington, really in our different Kenyan ethnic enclaves, whether that's Atlanta, Birmingham, Boston, and Maryland. We're seeing young people dying when they don't need to, or young people struggling with addiction and substances. And I have had loss in my own life of loss in the sense of friends who have passed due to substance use, mental health issues, and also friends who have been so severely impacted by their misuse of substances, or severely impacted by their psychological health problems that they didn't get the resources that they needed in time. And so now, it's a much different life experience for them. And through seeing that in our community, that woke me up. And I had a childhood friend. I grew up with him. I'm still close to his mom to this day. Unfortunately, he passed, and I believe that was 2019, and that was earth-shaking for me, mainly because you grow up with this person since you're a toddler. Yeah, and you know them into your adulthood, and you also see the struggles that they may have, but then to see how they succumb to those struggles. And that let me know, wait, I can't be here not doing anything about this, let alone not talking to parents, not talking to youth. And I think sometimes as Africans, we love to sweep things under the rug. Yeah. And, sometimes, even with those deaths that you're speaking of, it's not always listed as to how someone might have passed. So then you see the youth who are like, wait, what happened? What was the cause? And I saw at that time, a lot of people had questions, but no one was giving answers.
Yeah, because people want to just keep it under. Nobody wants to say, he was involved in drug and substance use, and that's how that, ended in the way it did. Yeah. And so it's a concern. But you said something that got my attention there. When you spoke about mental health, that's a big subject out there. And there are very, very many contributing factors. And one among them, I think, I would say the African immigrant community is that people come out here to look for money. And so they kind of tend to forget about their kids because they are lost in the hours that they put into work. What would you say to parents or, people living in that kind of situation?
Yes. Ooh. I think the challenge with that is parents work very hard to give their kids a better life or more, but the ultimate sacrifice is the time that they won't get back with their kids. And I oftentimes tell parents, you can work those hours, you can make that money, but you're missing out on who your kid not only is, but is evolving to be. And those moments that you think you're gonna get back, time it never comes back. So it's gone. And if you miss out on an entire soccer season and you didn't see your kid, but you afforded to put them in soccer, although that was a wonderful thing, you missed out on the relational aspects that are most important. And kids want their parents' time. Time, quality time, a healthy relationship, those are things that cannot be bought and they have to be invested into. And I always tell parents, if there's a way that you can find a balance, and it doesn't necessarily mean that even if you are working, let's say parents who work 6 days a week, right? Be intentional with the little time you do have. If that means on your off day, you only spend, 1 or 2 hours at a community event or something, like don't go spend the whole church day and everything. And you don't even like have lunch with your child, or go do something fun, do something that they value and show them interest, because it's not always sometimes about frequency of time spent. It's about the quality. And if you can ensure that quality, even once a month, twice a month, that is better than you cutting your hours at work and y'all are in the house, but you're not spending actual time together.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Makes sense. You do need people to participate in this research, because you need people to come out and, sort of like give you material, or so I would say. Yeah. What do you need people to do so that they can, participate, and what kind of commitment, in terms of time do you need? Yes.
So my project is called Be Well Fam. It is
cool.
Black.
That sounds good.
Thank you.
Be Well Fam.
Yes, Be Well Fam, which is kind of a double entendre of Be Well. But so my project is focused on Black youth and families, and it's Black youth and parents through everyday life and learning. And the focus of the project is to essentially work with parents and youth. And so they take surveys every day. And through those everyday surveys, we send them a text message. The survey takes about 5 minutes to take. We ask about general questions like your mood, your health today, activities that you may have had, whether it be physical activities or extracurricular. How was work? We ask the parents, what are your work relationships? Do you get along with your colleagues? Do you feel, discriminated against in your life? We ask about family relationships. And so we send those questions out once every night, and they take the surveys. And I've been so blessed to get funding for this project. And so we're able to pay parents, and teenagers can earn up to $125 each for participating.
Oh, really?
Yes. And so this is what I mean by this type of work, and for funding to be going towards this type of work, it's very important. And so I'm encouraging parents and youth to come and help me learn more about our community. And the ultimate benefit is the more we know, the better people like me and other professionals can serve our community.
I was going to ask you what benefits, go to the people. And the first one is, of course, earning.
Yes.
You're speaking to Kenyans, you're speaking to African immigrants, for example, who are out here looking for money. And that's partly why they are not there for their kids, looking for their money. So if they spend time with you on this, they also get some sort of compensation.
Absolutely.
How long does that process take?
Yes. So full participation is about 1 month. And mainly because, we have to meet with them on Zoom, make sure they understand everything about the study.
Right.
And then you start to take your surveys, which are about every day for 28 days, so 4 weeks. And you take your surveys. And then if you after that duration of time, if they want to continue working with us, we will follow up with them in 6 months, where they take a longer survey, about 20, 30 minutes. And it just allows us to kind of map the differences of time. But ultimately, because the surveys are so short, 5 minutes every day over the course of that month really only accumulates to about 2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. You mentioned already you have some that you're already working with, right? What is the most rewarding thing that you've been able to get out of it so far? I see a lot of passion come out of you when you're speaking about it. It's like really a subject that you enjoy. Other than that, what is the most rewarding thing that you experience when you work with these families and communities?
Yeah, the most rewarding thing that I would say is I love when parents or teenagers come up to me and they say, wow, I'm thinking about this differently. Or teens when they're like, thank you so much for telling my mom what I've been trying to tell her.
Oh,
But she's
nice.
finally listening because it's someone different.
Oh, cool. That's how cool is that?
Yes, that's like, that makes life worth living.
Wow, that's amazing. I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm just trying to think about our cultural differences. I mean, if I'm just looking at the Kenyans out here,
Yeah.
we have so many different tribes. You
Yes.
might get in this household, this is that tribe, and their value systems is so different, and therefore the way they go about
Yes.
handling each other in that space is so different from the other community. How wide does this go?
Interesting. Actually, I don't really often ask about different tribes. I think because I work with different organizations who do serve their specific, maybe more tribal bounds. But I think here in the US, especially as like Kenyans, oftentimes I think sometimes we treat it as it's taboo when you ask someone, like, especially our generation. Like, I think people don't really want to disclose what tribe they're from or make any assumptions about someone else. But I will say, from like parents who do consider those things, I'm always happy to consider culture. Like, we have to make cultural considerations because we must maintain our culture while we're here, and while also adapting and, keeping what makes sense. And I encourage parents to keep your cultural practices. And if you believe that they need to be adapted and shifted for the context that your family and your kids are living in, that's something we can talk about. And I can help you in navigating that and figuring out what makes sense and how to, and even really providing that understanding to the kids who are like, well, why do we have to specifically do it this way? Or why do you do it like this? And Andrew's mom doesn't do it like that.
Right. Yeah. The reason I asked about that is because we are so defragmented.
Yeah.
I used to do events before. And I've been challenged to do an event, like a big event out here in the US.
Yes.
And every time I try to make an attempt, I hit blocks. Like, when you come up with an event, if it has a political angle, it is regionalized. Who are you considering to bring, and where are they from? What region is that, and which political whatever outfit do they wear? If it is a Christian thing or a church-based thing, it's broken down into denominations. When it comes to gender, I've struggled to try to get men together,
Yeah.
I see events being genderized. Like, we have two very big events that I know about. Kwitu, which is a women's event, and gets a lot of women together. And I also know about Hello Gorgeous, yet another women's event. But we're not able to get like one that gets as many men as it gets women, in there. So I find all these blocks coming up. And so sometimes when I wonder, already that division keeps coming up. And so when I was asking this question is because from our households, there is a value system that is based on what is my culture in the region I come from in Kenya. If I am a Somali Kenyan, my outlook is not the same as that of, and therefore the way I'm going to bring up my teenagers is probably not the same as the way a Luo who is living here is going to be. So
I will say I experienced those same challenges. I've been doing community work now since about 2016, 2017, and I come from parents who do a lot of community work, grandparents who do a lot of community work, and that is a challenge. And it's one that we have yet to problem solve for.
Right.
And even for me, for example, with this research study, we need Black fathers.
Yeah.
We know a lot about moms and Black moms. We don't know much about Black fathers.
Fathers.
Please.
Wanaume.
Yeah, but it really is a challenge. And one thing that I have tried to do is expand my network. And I think because I am a social person, I'm genuinely curious, I tend to, put myself in situations where I can connect with others and go experience other cultures. And that has opened a lot of doors for me where now I'm able to do more work than is just what's with Kenyans or Kikuyus. I have friends from all over.
Yeah.
Friends from who are Ethiopian, who are Haitian, who are from Cameroon, Nigerian friends. And it's just opened doors with other organizations that serve those populations. And through building a professional network and having some credibility in the work that I do, it has now opened doors for me to also go and learn from those communities, be of service to those communities, and collaborate with others.
Right.
So I think part of the biggest thing is we must start collaborating more so that when we're designing an event or a workshop or something, that different perspectives are included. And also when we're advertising and marketing, those are going to more than just the common spaces that we're sending on WhatsApp or on different forums. And then also, so when people show up to those events, they're not alone, and that they know that people are welcoming them and are supporting them, and that they will have aspects of themselves that are also represented, even though maybe it may not be in the largest of numbers, but to know that there's 2 or 3 board members who identify similarly to you, culturally, ethnically. I think that is a great place to start.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. How do people get you?
Yes, so you can contact me. My email is best at Kelly, Kelly, period, W, period, NGIGI at gmail.com. I'm also on Instagram. You can find me at Get Well by Kells, Get Well, which GET, WELLBY. KELLZ. You can find me on Instagram.
Is there a deadline for participation? Like, by when do you need these people to come through? And use the same opportunity to speak again to fathers so that they can agree to participate.
Fathers, please hear me, see me clearly. I need your support. We need your voices. We need your perspective. We need to know what fatherhood is like, how you relate to your child, the experiences that you're having. This is a wonderful opportunity to add voice. And so that we don't only, have to service just mothers, we also want to be support and be a resource to you and the experiences that you're having with your child and help you foster healthy relationships. The research project is, most importantly, it's throughout the school year. So for here in Washington State, we'll be collecting data until June, since the kids typically get out mid-June. But we encourage go ahead and signing up through our QR code, through our screener, and just sharing your contact information and getting started as soon as possible. Because the study does last 4 weeks, it's very important that we have enough time. So this is a wonderful time, and I highly encourage you all to participate, especially before mid-May, so that we can have those school experiences that the kids are having.
What's next for you?
Ooh. This is hard. I'll tell you why this is specifically hard right now, because we are in an age of anti-intellectualism here in the U.S.
Are we?
We are.
Oh, my goodness.
Let me tell you.
That sounds like doomsday.
It's not, it's not doomsday. It's concerning in the sense that when you see institutions like the CDC, the NIH, research institutions, academic spaces where research is happening, being targeted, funding being taken away, it's really now the field that I thought I was getting into. I'm now having to spend time reimagining and re-envisioning how I will show up as a scientist once I'm done with my PhD and graduate. And so I originally was very much considering being a full professor, tenure track, do research in an academic space. But one of the things that I'm considering more and more is actually going either maybe industry-wise and working for a research institute or an organization that still supports research work. And also, most importantly, my community work. That's always going to be there. So I plan to continue hosting psychoeducation workshops. I continue to facilitate conversations with parents and youth in different meetings and events. I will hopefully be going into consulting as well. So offering my support to churches, to organizations, to other leaders who serve youth, who serve family. And helping them better and improve their mechanisms and bring evidence-based resources to them so that they're able to better serve the communities that they have.
Right. If there is a group of youth or young people, I've interviewed a gentleman called Justin, and they have a group that they work with. They bring together like young people, and they've been really, really talking about all these issues that affect the youth, and they feel like the gap between themselves and their parents is not being addressed. I think they have an annual event every time. Is that something that you would be looking towards getting into, and
Absolutely.
are those groupings that you would be interested in reaching out to?
Yes, I would love to. If you are watching this and you have an organization, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm open to opportunities. I'm open to collaboration. I'm always willing to be a resource to our community and to our families and our youth. And it's something that I plan to continue doing. And when I think about these specific organizations or groups, whether it's youth groups or church groups, I'm always happy to come and, be part of a panel or host a workshop or, facilitate and be a facilitator in a conference. Now that I'm towards the end of my graduate studies, I'm having a lot more time and availability to do those things. So I hope to really up that within the next year or two.
All right. Sounds fun. Other than just doing science and enjoying the research and mood studies,
Yes.
What do you do for fun?
I love to travel. See the world. There's so much out there. I think just being able to see and connect with different people in different environments. I am someone who believes that life is quite simple and us humans tend to complicate it. Me being someone who tends to complicate my own life. But the thing about travel that allows me, and I don't mean just, go to Australia, go to Mexico, like you go to the town over, go see a mountain, go hike, go paddle in the water, just go do something in a different space and environment, learn something new about yourself, learn something new about the people around you and in that place. And I think that is just such a fulfilling and enriching experience. So that's what I love to do.
Beautiful.
Yes.
As we come to the close, your parting shot.
No, that was so childish.
Cute.
Sorry. I'm an adult. Sorry. Hold on. I'm about to be a scientist.
That's very interesting. A lot of times people ask, in every conversation, by the time you're done, people asking, is she dating? Does she have a man? It's not me.
Of course.
I just keep getting that kind of a question. So
I just laugh because this past weekend I went to some events and it's definitely a popular question.
Yes, it is.
Even the pastors are saying, Kelly Wambo, you're marrying age. And I will say, I am someone who is blessed with a lot of love in my life. And I am very grateful for the people that I've been able to do life with. I am very much open to creating a beautiful life. I am dating, I'm not spoken for. The goats have not been delivered.
Okay.
So if that lets you know, yes.
That's a good place to leave this at, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure speaking to Kelly. Reach her out and talk to her. Get to know what you can do. This is a very, very important conversation to have and a very, very important process to undertake. My name is Tony Shira. This is Andani Marikani. Nikikupasha yanayojiri, yanavyojiri, yanapojiri. Again, that's to say what's happening, where, and how. That's it.
Wonderful.
Thank
you so much. That was fun.